You think Colombia is just coffee, colorful festivals, and the shadow of one infamous drug lord? Then explain this. How did ancient gold figures, created more than 1,000 years ago, end up looking like perfectly aerodynamic aircraft, complete with wings, stabilizers, and a vertical tail? How does a city hidden deep inside the jungle turn out to be hundreds of years older than Machu Picchu, yet somehow escaped the Spanish conquerors entirely? How do giant stone monuments align with stars from a viewing point that no longer exists? And how does an entire civilization build more than 1,000 monuments, then vanish without war, without disaster, and without even leaving behind its own name? Today, we're uncovering 5 discoveries from one country, each one challenging everything we think we know about history, and the most impossible one we'll save for the end. Part 1. The Forbidden Black Disk. Colombia is a country that the world often overlooks. Most people travel to Peru. Most people visit Machu Picchu. Most people study the Maya and the Aztecs. Meanwhile, Colombia quietly keeps some of the strangest mysteries in South America hidden in plain sight. And our first discovery might be the most controversial of them all. Because this isn't a lost city. It isn't a giant monument. It's a small, black stone disc, roughly 9 inches across, small enough to fit inside someone's hands. But what appears on its surface has puzzled researchers for decades. This object is known as the Tucumã disc. It was reportedly discovered in the Antioquia region of Colombia and is currently held inside a private collection. At first glance, it doesn't look extraordinary, just a dark, circular stone covered with tiny carvings. But look closer, very close. Around the outer edge appear male and female reproductive forms. Closer to the center, there are shapes that resemble sperm cells, then a fertilized egg, then an embryo, then what appears to be a fetus, developing stage by stage until birth. If this interpretation is correct, it raises an uncomfortable question. How could an ancient civilization understand human development without modern microscopes? Officially, humanity didn't observe sperm cells until 1677. Modern embryology wasn't developed until the 19th century. Yet some researchers believe this object may be over 1,000 years old. But this is where things become controversial. The artifact has never been fully authenticated by a major scientific institution. No large museum officially recognizes it. Many archaeologists question both its age and its interpretation. And that's exactly why it remains one of Colombia's biggest mysteries. But there is another strange detail. The disc is made from an extremely hard stone called lyddite, a material that is notoriously difficult to carve. Even modern craftsmen have reported how challenging it is to work with. The engravings themselves are incredibly precise. Some details measure less than a single millimeter. And according to several reports, attempts to recreate similar carvings have ended with fractured stone and failed experiments. Then there is the collection found beside it. Dozens of tiny stone tools. Some resemble miniature surgical instruments. Others are so small that they seem almost impossible to use. What were they made for? Nobody knows. What exactly were these people seeing? Nobody knows. Were these ancient medical instruments? Or are we simply interpreting them through a modern lens? Again, nobody knows. But this is only the beginning. Because our second discovery doesn't sit on a table. It flies. And somehow, it flies extremely well. Part 2. The Flying Gold Artifacts. Our second discovery is small enough to fit in the palm of your hand. But for decades, it has started one of the biggest debates in ancient history. Because this object doesn't look like a fish, it doesn't look like an insect, and it definitely doesn't look accidental. These are known as the Quimbaya gold artifacts, created by the Quimbaya civilization of Colombia more than 1,000 years ago. Hundreds of these objects have been discovered. Some are displayed in museums. Many remain inside storage rooms. At first glance, They appear to be stylized animals. That's the official explanation. Birds, fish, or insects. But then, two German aeronautical engineers took a closer look, and they noticed something strange. Very strange. They weren't looking at an animal. They were looking at something that resembled an aircraft, a fuselage, delta-shaped wings, a vertical tail stabilizer, and aerodynamic proportions that looked surprisingly modern. At first, most people dismissed the idea, but the engineers decided to test it. They built a larger replica using the exact proportions of the artifact. Then they installed a small motor and launched it into the air. To their surprise, it flew. Not for a second, not by accident. It flew with stability. Then they removed the motor completely, turning it into a glider. And once again, it flew, smoothly, without spinning, without immediately falling, without losing balance. But this is where things become controversial. Flying doesn't prove ancient people built airplanes. Many shapes found in nature are naturally aerodynamic. Birds are aerodynamic. Fish are aerodynamic. Even seeds can glide through the air. But researchers noticed another strange detail. Some artifacts contain tiny symmetrical grooves underneath their wings, features that resemble airflow control surfaces used in modern aviation. Coincidence? Possibly. Intentional? Nobody knows. Today, more than 1,000 similar gold artifacts are believed to exist, yet only a small number have ever been examined from an engineering perspective. Most remain inside museum storage rooms, largely untouched. And that leaves us with one uncomfortable question. If these objects were never meant to fly, then why do some of them fly so well? Who designed these shapes? And more importantly, why? Because our next discovery isn't hidden inside a museum. It's hidden inside a jungle, a city so well hidden that an entire empire never found it.
Part 3. The Lost City, Hidden in the Jungle.
Imagine building an entire city deep inside a mountain jungle. Stone roads, massive terraces, ceremonial plazas, thousands of people, and then, somehow, the outside world forgets it ever existed. For centuries, that's exactly what happened. Hidden within the mountains of northern Colombia lies one of the most extraordinary archaeological sites in the Americas. A place known today as Ciudad Perdida, the Lost City. And unlike many ancient mysteries, this one is absolutely real. The city remained hidden beneath dense jungle vegetation for hundreds of years. Not because it was underground, not because it was protected by walls, but because nature slowly swallowed it whole. Trees grew through its pathways, roots covered its staircases, the rainforest erased almost every visible trace of its existence. Then, in the early 1970s, local treasure hunters moving through the jungle noticed something unusual. Ancient stone steps, then more steps, and more. What began as a search for buried valuables quickly became one of the most important archaeological discoveries in South America. As researchers pushed deeper into the mountains, the true scale of the site began to emerge. Hundreds of stone terraces carved directly into the mountainside, intricate pathways connecting different sections of the city, advanced drainage systems designed to control tropical rainfall, engineering that still functions in some areas today. And the higher they climbed, the larger the city became. Today, archaeologists have identified more than 160 stone terraces spread across the mountains. But many researchers believe large portions of the city remain hidden beneath the jungle, waiting to be discovered. And here's where things become even more surprising. Radiocarbon dating suggests parts of Ciudad Perdida may date back to around the 8th century, hundreds of years before Machu Picchu was built, at a time when much of the world had never even heard of the Americas. Yet, despite its size, despite its complexity, and despite the arrival of Spanish explorers in the region, the city was never officially recorded by the conquistadors. No detailed maps, no military reports, no descriptions, nothing. It's as if an entire city simply slipped through the cracks of history. But perhaps the most fascinating mystery isn't the city itself, it's the people who never forgot it. Because while the outside world lost track of Ciudad Perdida, someone was still watching. Someone was still protecting the mountains. And according to them, the lost city is only a small piece of a much larger story. A story that begins with a people who call themselves the elder brothers of humanity. And their warning may be more important today than ever before.
Part 4. The Kogi people.
But perhaps the greatest mystery isn't an ancient city. It's the people who never forgot it. Because while the outside world was busy rediscovering Ciudad Perdida, someone had been protecting these mountains all along for centuries. These people are known as the Kogi, an indigenous community living high in Colombia's Sierra Nevada mountains. And according to them, this mountain is not just a mountain, it's the heart of the world. Today, around 20,000 Kogi still live here, without modern cities, without highways, without dependence on modern technology. Not because they are isolated from the world, but because they consciously chose a different path. A path their ancestors have protected for hundreds of years. The Kogi call themselves the elder brothers of humanity, and they call the rest of us the younger brothers. Because they believe humanity has forgotten something important, something their ancestors never abandoned. To the Kogi, the earth is not a resource. It is a living organism. The rivers are its veins, the forests are its lungs, the mountains are its bones. And every action we take affects the balance of the entire system. For centuries, they remained silent, watching, observing, waiting. Then, something changed. In 1990, the Kogi did something they had almost never done before. They spoke directly to the outside world, a message recorded for the BBC. Their warning was simple. Humanity is damaging the planet faster than nature can recover. The glaciers are melting, the rivers are shrinking, the forests are disappearing, and the balance that has existed for thousands of years is beginning to collapse. But the Kogi are not activists. They are not politicians, and they are not trying to control anyone. They are messengers, protectors of a knowledge system passed down for generations. They call this balance a luna, a sacred concept that connects every living thing. According to them, everything exists twice, first in thought, then in reality. And when humanity destroys nature, it first destroys that balance inside a luna itself. Several times, journalists have asked the Kogi a simple question. Why speak now? Why break centuries of silence? One Kogi elder answered with a sentence that still echoes today. Because if we remain silent any longer, there may be nobody left to listen. It's a warning that sounds less like a prophecy and more like an observation. Because everywhere we look, the signs are already there. Melting glaciers, dying rivers, vanishing forests. Perhaps that's why the Kogi never call themselves superior. They don't claim to have all the answers. They simply believe they have been paying attention longer than we have. And while they continue protecting these mountains, another mystery waits below. A civilization that disappeared completely. No war, no invasion, no disaster, no explanation. Only stone statues remain, hundreds of them, watching, waiting, as if they were left behind for someone who would arrive thousands of years later and ask the same question we're asking now. Who built them, and where did they go?
Part 5. The civilization that left no name.
But while the Kogi continue protecting their mountains, another mystery waits far to the south. A civilization that disappeared completely. No war, no invasion, no natural disaster, no explanation. Only stone remains. Hundreds of enormous stone statues, standing silently for thousands of years, watching, waiting, as if they were left behind for someone who would arrive much later and ask the same question we are asking today. Who built them? And where did they go? Welcome to San Agustín, one of the largest ancient ceremonial landscapes in all of South America. Hidden high in the Magdalena River Valley of central Colombia, at nearly 2,000 meters above sea level. Today, archaeologists have documented more than 500 giant stone monuments. But many researchers believe there may be more than 1,300 spread across the region. Some stand over 4 meters tall. Some weigh more than 30 tons. Each one carved from volcanic stone. Transporting even one of them would have required enormous effort. Yet they are everywhere, scattered across hillsides, guarding ancient tombs, watching over sacred burial grounds. And this is where things become strange, very strange, because most of these statues don't appear entirely human. Some have enormous fangs, others have oversized eyes. Some appear to combine human and animal features together, especially the jaguar, a creature considered sacred throughout much of ancient South America. Researchers believe many of these figures may represent shamans, spiritual leaders believed to move between two worlds, the world of the living and the world beyond. But there is another mystery. Some statues appear to wear tight, full-body coverings, outfits that conceal nearly the entire face, leaving only the eyes visible. No one knows exactly what these garments represent. No other known pre-Columbian culture is famous for depicting clothing quite like this. And perhaps the biggest mystery of all, the civilization itself has no name. We don't know what these people called themselves. Today, archaeologists simply call them the San Agustín culture, because that's all we have left: stone and silence. Researchers believe they existed from around the 1st century BCE until roughly the 6th century CE. Then, they disappeared. No evidence of invasion, no signs of mass death, no giant battlefields, no destroyed cities. At some point, they simply stopped building, stopped burying their dead, and walked away, never to return. One monument stands out more than any other. Researchers call it the shaman with the double. At its center stands a human figure. Above its head, a second figure appears upside down, almost like a reflection from another world. In many Amazonian traditions, an inverted world represents the space between life and death, a place spiritual leaders enter during deep states of trance. But here's the strange part. This symbol appears in many cultures across South America, cultures that never had direct contact with one another. How did the same idea travel so far? Nobody knows. Then there are the statues with two faces, one looking forward, one looking behind. Only 3 examples are known, and all 3 exist here. Perhaps they represent the past, perhaps they represent the future, or perhaps they were trying to say something else entirely, something we no longer understand. Because when a civilization leaves behind no written language, stone becomes its final voice. And every one of these statues seems to be asking us the same question: do you remember us? Because our final discovery doesn't speak through stone, it speaks through the sky. And it may be the strangest one yet.